So it's a critical moment in Colorado's forests. Years of persistent drought have stressed forests all across the state.
Process that uses radio frequency technology.
Bark of the Douglas fir is dark brown to gray.
That relationship that we as people have with the natural world.
We're sitting around here with a lot of dead and dying timber.
We want interns to feel like they have a really well-rounded experience.
Think about it that you're investing in the future here, not just for yourself, but for everyone.
Welcome back to Forest FM. Today, we're taking a journey beyond the borders of Colorado. Collaboration and partnerships play an important role in sharing knowledge, working across boundaries, and expanding the scope and impact of natural resources management. Our planet is changing with direct effects on forests. Climate change isn't an isolated issue. It requires widespread collective effort to build initiatives that prioritize our natural resources and integrate sustainable practices into the way we do business. To address our shared challenges, innovation and open-mindedness are key. As we find in forestry, the way things have been done in the past might not be the best solution in these new conditions. It's as much an art as it is a science. And sometimes even far-fetched ideas grounded in learning and adaptation can inspire practical approaches down the road. As the Colorado State Forest Service is part of the Warner College of Natural Resources at CSU, we champion their strategic approach to building a sustainable world and addressing environmental challenges. Forestry has a huge role to play in supporting this. In this dynamic moment, one priority here is to achieve global leadership in natural resources education, research, outreach, and service by increasing the international scope of our work and partnerships with thinkers and doers across the world. Today, we'll hear a story about how innovation, collaboration, and shared learning can create ripple effects both abroad and right here at home in Colorado.
Finland. What on earth does it have in common with Colorado, especially when it comes to sustainability? My name is Phil Peterson. I'm a forestry communications specialist here at the Colorado State Forest Service. Caught somewhere between microwave boxes, robots roaming the forests, and artificial intelligence, our guest today has the answers, or at least some of them.
Hi, I'm Amanda West Fordham, Associate Director of the Science and Data Division at the Colorado State Forest Service,
which includes experiential learning, geospatial data and analysis, forest health, forest monitoring, and the Forest Inventory and Analysis Program. Last November, Amanda spent a week in Finland, and it was a bit more than a vacation.
This trip was organized by the Colorado Office for Economic Development and International Trade, Business Finland, and the U.S. Embassy in Finland.
But to understand how this all happened, we have to go back in time. In February 2022, there was a meeting organized by the Colorado Office for Economic Development and Trade and the Governor's Office in Denver. There, Amanda presented data related to forest science and products in Colorado to a delegation from Finland, including Ambassador of Finland, Mikko Hautala. At the very same meeting, there was a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, signed by Governor Polis and the Ambassador of Finland on increased cooperation into research, development, and commercial sectors on sustainable and advanced technologies. This featured 3 initiatives: quantum technologies and high-performance computing, green economy, clean energy and climate resilience, and aerospace technology and applications.
Key targets under the MOU are Finnish startups establishment in Colorado, Colorado investment and R&D in Finland, co-innovation projects with a global reach, growth in world-class academic and research exchanges, and policy exchanges.
Meaning that there's a clear understanding that both Colorado and Finland are prioritizing these issues. And by working together, there's a whole lot to learn.
I've been coordinating and advising in the green economy focus, specifically related to forestry and wood products utilization. So then in November 2023, I was honored to join the delegation from Colorado to Finland, where I made connections with Business Finland, the University of Helsinki, Aalto University, and several industries. This was an opportunity to better understand academics, research, and policies supporting the forest bioeconomy in Finland.
Now, when Amanda first told me about this trip, it was clear that this was the beginning of a much broader initiative. But I wanted to know what the main goal was of sending folks over there.
The primary purpose is to support that cross-boundary collaboration. So understanding where there's opportunities for industry collaboration, academic collaboration, as well as policy. There's a lot of similarities between Colorado and Finland in terms of natural resource management, but also in some of these other topics that are highlighted in the MOU. One example is hydrogen batteries, and there's several startups in Colorado who are working with hydrogen batteries, and that's a topic of industry research in Finland as well.
And fitting all of this in 7 days sounded like a challenge.
It was a packed schedule, and I'm thankful for that because I was exposed to a lot of different industries as well as research institutes in Finland, and we spent most of the days collaborating and having presentations related to the bioeconomy there.
When you hear bioeconomy, think about industry that centers around natural products, resources, and services derived from things like plants.
One of the things that I noted very early on in the trip was how they build their industry around a circular economy, and everywhere you go, trash is separated into compost and recyclables. There is generally less waste.
But before we get to more of the trip, let's think about how Colorado and Finland have high-level goals that overlap.
Colorado and Finland have much in common related to the role of natural resource management in climate mitigation and adaptation.
Colorado is a member of the U.S. Climate Alliance, a bipartisan coalition of governors, state agencies, and nonprofits that are committed to upholding the goals of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
And members are committed to reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, promoting clean energy, and taking other actions to combat climate change. To help meet these goals, Colorado established science-based targets of reducing statewide greenhouse gas emissions and monitoring of these emissions.
These are put in place by Senate Bill 2316 and House Bill 19-1261.
To include reductions of 65% by 2035, 75% by 2040, and 90% by 2045, while also revising the 2050 target to 100%.
Now, those might just sound like lofty goals, but the work is happening here on the ground.
I'm part of the Colorado Natural and Working Lands Climate Task Force, and last year we released the state's first ever draft strategic plan for climate-smart natural and working lands. This strategic plan identifies priority actions across Colorado's landscapes to reduce emissions, increase carbon sequestration, and create a climate-resilient Colorado. In this plan, we integrated strategies from the 2020 Colorado Forest Action Plan for addressing challenges to forest conditions, living with wildfire, watershed protection, forest wildlife, urban and community forestry, and forest products. These strategies were developed using a climate change response framework. Additionally, this plan identified the need for more targeted and detailed analysis of forest carbon to better understand the specific roles and impacts of the state's forests in climate mitigation, including their capacity for carbon sequestration and storage.
Now, when you think about what Finland is doing, you can see where we might draw some inspiration.
Finland is a global forerunner in climate change mitigation. In 1990, they were the first country to introduce a carbon tax, and they aimed to be carbon neutral by 2035. In 2016, they were also the first to create a circular economy roadmap.
You might have heard this term. Basically refers to natural resources being consumed only within the limits of Earth's carrying capacity. So we want to eliminate waste of production through maintenance, reuse, refurbishment, remanufacturing, recycling, and composting.
In this model, materials remain in circulation for as long as possible, minimizing the amount of waste that needs to be recycled or disposed. Wood products are integral to this circular economy concept. One example is plastic packaging. Companies create wood-based material that is completely biodegradable and do not release microplastics. Another example is integrating mass timber in buildings.
Mass timber is something that deserves its own episode. It basically refers to engineered structural wood products, including lumber, veneer, strands, fibers. And they're all joined together using adhesives or fasteners. And what it means is you can use smaller diameter trees and a variety of species. There's also cross-laminated timber, which combines sawn timber into structural panels that can replace steel slabs and concrete.
When used efficiently, mass timber has a lower embodied carbon footprint compared to traditional building materials like steel and concrete. Quantifying the climate impacts of biogenic carbon storage,
or the carbon that's stored in biological materials like plants,
in mass timber is an area of ongoing scientific investigation. However, minimizing waste in production, maximizing reuse potential, and ensuring the health of the source forests are widely accepted strategies to maximize the benefits of carbon storage in mass timber buildings.
But these aspects of a circular economy aren't just talk. Amanda got to hear from the experts and practitioners who are carrying this out in Finland.
It was certainly an eye-opening experience because I was exposed to how this circular economy works in Finland and how it is working and what some successes they've seen are and also what the challenges are. And I think that those lessons can certainly be brought back to Colorado in terms of thinking about how we can sustain our usage of natural resources in the state.
One of the companies that Amanda met with was Stora Enso, a leading provider of renewable products in packaging, biomaterials, and wooden construction.
I'll never forget what was said at the beginning of our visit. Everything that's made from fossil-based materials today can be made from a tree tomorrow. This company is leading research and development in innovative woody biomass utilization.
In other words, raw material from trees that can be used for wood products or energy.
With products such as Lignode, which uses lignin, cellulose, and hemicellulose,
structural components of cell walls in plants,
from trees as a replacement for graphite and car batteries. They have many products that use tree lignin as bio-based binders and renewable replacements for polystyrene-based products.
So white foam packaging that might come in a microwave box.
So this is really an innovative company that's realizing profit alongside sustainability. At the Colorado State Forest Service, we published a 2020 Colorado Forest Action Plan, and in the resource strategy section, we outlined some priority strategies for forest products industry improvement in the state, and this included fairly and equitably supporting increased forest industry capacity to sustainably address forest health issues and to offset the costs of forest treatments, develop low-interest loans for the forest products industry, launch grants to incentivize the use of low-value wood, promote state tax incentives, including extension of exemption for blue-stained wood products, which is from beetle-killed pine, and to stimulate infrastructure and markets for handling small-diameter material. The wood products industry in Colorado is an important component of the state's economy, albeit not as important as it is in Finland. It does contribute to sustainable forest management and provides a long-term carbon sink depending on how the products are utilized once they're removed from the forest.
Carbon storage also deserves its own episode.
It spans in Colorado from logging operations in forest lands to primary mills that produce timber to raw materials like lumber and wood chips, as well as secondary manufacturers that create finished goods like furniture, cabinetry, and wood pellets. By providing jobs and contributing to local economies, the timber industry helps support rural communities located near forested areas. The industry is also critical to addressing forest health issues and wildfire risks, as sustainable timber harvest helps to thin overstocked forests and reduce fuels. The wood products industry provides a long-term carbon sink, delaying the amount of carbon dioxide that enters the atmosphere at the time of harvest by continuing to store the carbon for the duration of the product's lifespan. It is important that forest growth balances removals when we talk about forest products, and this is certainly a focus in forest management, both in Colorado and Finnish forestry.
As these innovative ideas emerge from companies like Stora Enso, we have to think about how they can form capacity elsewhere. For natural resource managers, it means adapting alongside the speed of tech innovation.
With increased investment in forest management, one of the things that is quickly realized is that the workforce and tools we have employed in the past aren't necessarily going to meet the moment. In other words, with an increased focus on pace and scale, land managers are adopting new technologies to increase efficiencies and sustainability. One example in Finland that I was exposed to is integrating robotics in forest management. So the Finnish Forest Center, which uses Ponzi machines.
Ponzi is a Finnish company that produces forest harvesting machines and components like harvesters and forwarders, and they're known for being particularly innovative.
Developing robots to autonomously perform forest maintenance tasks.
Finland has a labor shortage when it comes to forestry. What this means is these robots can walk through the woods much like a forester would, and because they're equipped with sensors, they can take in a lot of data all at once. This can pair well with some of their machines.
And the system is designed for user friendliness and offers machine control and a work management system for harvesters, forwarders, and track-based forest machines. They do incorporate advanced technology to reduce environmental impact and promote responsible forestry practices. For example, these machines are fuel efficient to minimize carbon emissions, but also reducing environmental footprint of forestry operations. In fact, they recently developed an electric Ponzi machine, which is the first of its kind. Operators of these machines have access to real-time data and performance analytics through integrated digital tools. This allows for predictive maintenance, which minimizes downtime and reduces repair costs. In addition, the data-driven insights contribute to the optimization of forestry operations, which inherently promotes long-term sustainability. In Colorado, Miller Timber is a company that has begun to employ Ponzis for forest management near Colorado Springs. These machines can operate on steep slopes that are characteristic of much of Colorado's forested landscape. So I think we are starting to adopt some of those approaches.
While we might not be seeing robot dogs walking through Colorado's forests anytime soon, there's more that might be more familiar to you.
During my trip, I visited the Finnish Geospatial Research Institute, where forest inventories are led by the National Land Surveys of Finland, which is governed by the Ministry of Ag and Forestry. And there they're using mobile laser scanning to inventory every tree in Finland. Artificial intelligence is also being used to gather information about young forests and seedling stands, and they're combining geospatial data, imagery sources, and climate and weather data sets to produce accurate measurements of forest stands, and that allows them to have more efficiencies when they're completing their forest inventories. At the Colorado State Forest Service, we host the Forest Inventory and Analysis Program, which is under an agreement with the Rocky Mountain Research Station. This is essentially the census of forests across Colorado, parts of Wyoming, and other states in the region. We are also working with the Rocky Mountain Research Station and Colorado State University to evaluate terrestrial LiDAR scanning for forest management and monitoring, and to develop workflows for foresters to integrate this technology into their operations. There's certainly a lot of room for collaboration and applied research between research institutes and universities in Finland and Colorado. Innovations in artificial intelligence and robotics can help fill those employment gaps and improve efficiencies and the sustainability of forest management. There's also a potential for research collaborations in spruce beetles, which is a challenge to forest health both in Colorado and Finland.
Now, it's important to note that while forests in Finland and Colorado are not identical, and forest management depends on a huge range of conditions that can be highly variable wherever you are. But these tools and these innovations are going to help empower folks on the ground, help them be more efficient, and help them have the information and tools that they need to do their jobs. And as we learn and find new ways to implement these strategies, we can share this across borders. But there are similarities between forest management in Finland and here in Colorado, particularly when it comes to helping private landowners manage their local forests.
So the Finnish Forestry Center
To the Finns, that'd be Suomen metsäkeskus.
provides private forest owners with forest management plans and recommendations to help owners calculate the value of their forest. And this allows them to create a sale or collect payments for conservation. So this is very similar to the services that the Colorado State Forest Service provides to private forest landowners. This is an area of mutual interest. The Finnish Forestry Center also provides subsidies for planting seedlings or building infrastructure such as forest roads or drainage areas. And another area of mutual interest is forest products. And in Colorado, the increased federal and state investment in the use of mechanical thinning for wildfire risk reduction is yielding an increase in the quantity of smaller diameter timber. In an effort to promote the utilization of this material, both the U.S. Forest Service and the Colorado State Forest Service administer grants to promote innovative wood product use, and this decreases the amount of woody biomass that ends up in a waste disposal. So in that way, we can start to think about how we can create a more circular economy around wood products in Colorado.
And over 60% of forests in Finland are privately owned, compared to around 30% here in Colorado. One important distinction in Finland is the notion of jokaisen oikeudet, or everyone's rights, which means everyone can recreate across ownership types to enjoy and appreciate nature.
And then another way to think about ownership is regardless of the type of ownership, whether it's federal, state, or private, there is a declining number of harvesting contractors in Colorado, many of which are small businesses. When I was in Finland, I saw that this is also the case there. And companies like Stora Enso rely on harvesting contractors, even though they own the land where the trees are being harvested for wood products. In Colorado, as of the year 2020, there were 46 primary wood processing facilities in the state, which was down from there were 142 in 2002. So despite challenges, including fluctuating market demand and complex regulatory policies, the Colorado wood products industry remains an important component of the state's economy and a key player in maintaining the health and vitality of its forested ecosystems, which is very much in line with Finnish forestry. There's a lot of opportunity with the relationships that are being established between leaders in Colorado and Finland, definitely in the forestry and bioeconomy space. There were other members of the delegation from Colorado that I joined last November from private industry, which included hydrogen batteries, for example, and those delegates attended the Slush Convention while we were there, which is the world's largest gathering of venture capital. And there's a space made at that conference where international entrepreneurs, investors, and partners meet. During the trip that we made to Finland, we also visited the VTT Technical Research Center of Finland, the University of Helsinki, Aalto University, Stora Enso, Helen Ventures, Vaisala, ISAI Satellite Company, Uniki, the Finnish Meteorological Institute, the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and several others that I haven't named. We also attended a reception at the U.S. Ambassador to Finland, Douglas Hickey's residence. And I'm listing all of these visits to extend sincere gratitude for everyone who hosted our visits and made the Finnish trip happen, as well as creating these new connections. And of course, special thanks to Business Finland and the Office of Economic Development and International Trade for organizing the trip.
Despite all of the information that Amanda took away from this trip, it's just the beginning.
I'm now assisting both Business Finland and the Office of Economic Development and International Trade in identifying experts for an upcoming mission to Finland. And we really want to focus on experts from industry, research, and policy because this upcoming trip is focused on forestry and bioeconomy, which would continue to support the goals of the Colorado-Finland MOU. This trip will focus on things like forest science, forest industry, new bio-based products, and wood construction, including mass timber and cross-laminated timber. And since academic and research exchanges are highlighted in the Colorado-Finland MOU, I'm also coordinating with colleagues at Colorado State University and the University of Helsinki to evaluate areas of mutual interest in research and potential student exchanges. So I'm excited to see where we go from here and what the future looks like in these collaborations.
There's a whole lot more to learn about the future of collaboration between Colorado and Finland, and we covered a lot of terms in this episode, so be sure to visit the show notes to check out some links to learn more.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Forest FM. To learn more about the podcast and the Colorado State Forest Service, please visit our website at csfs.colostate.edu. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.